everyone, I'm here today with a bit of a different video. Usually on my channel I do things like tarot readings, I do the astrology for the week, I do unboxing videos sometimes when I'm lucky enough to get something new. I talk about, tarot cards and, do book reviews and that kind of thing, and it's usually like pretty happy, lighthearted in some ways subjects, nothing like too crazy or too deep. But today I kind of wanted to talk about something that I was a little reluctant to talk to at first, but then when I was talking to some people I know about this subject, they encouraged me to make a video about it because they said it was a pretty important thing to talk about. So I wanted to talk about victim blaming in the New Age community and spiritual communities in general. It's something that is pretty pervasive and it's quite subtle, and sometimes not so subtle. And so I wanted to talk about it and, have a discussion what your thoughts are on the matter, because it's an idea that I've come across a lot in sort of different communities, and I just want to know what your thoughts are on this. And I was talking to a friend about this, and she said that she felt like she was alone, and then when she heard me express the same opinion, she was like, thank God, I feel the same way. Now, I don't really think of myself as New Age, although I do follow people online that are part of that community. I have read lots of books that are sort of made by New Age authors and things like that, and I do take different lessons sort of from it. I kind of the belief that no matter what teacher you're learning from, whether it's from a book or a YouTube channel, or you're going and you're learning something from someone in person, to always keep your critical thinking and keep your skeptic hat on and don't believe 100% everything they say. Take what works and leave the rest. And the same goes with me. Like, if you hear something from me that doesn't resonate with you, like, that's fine. Nobody has all the answers, and anybody that claims that they do is full of poop. So, take what works for you and leave the rest. But sometimes someone says something that is a deal breaker for you. For me, if there's certain things that just kind of make me cross things off with this person. So to get into it, what I'm talking about is, in the New Age community, there are some people who believe, and certainly not everyone, but there is a belief that everything that happens to you is sort of prearranged, that on the other side, before you're born, you have soul contracts with other people to learn lessons in your life, good or bad. And so everyone is your teacher. Everyone's teaching you something, whether it's a positive or a negative thing, which sounds kind of lovely on the surface, but it can translate into some dangerous thinking in certain circumstances. So to give you an example, I was recently at a event. So I was there in person, and it isn't about like the person that said it, it's just more about the idea, but I just want to give you the example that really got me thinking about this subject. So I was at this event, and there was a person that was speaking, and they were saying, and they're, pretty respected person and everything. And again, I haven't always agreed with this person on everything they say, but I take what works for me, leave the rest. But when they said this, it was a big deal breaker for me. So there was another woman attending this thing who said that they were talking about how they believe that no one's a victim. And this one was saying that it was this, really kind of heart-wrenching story, and trigger warning if you're triggered by anything about abuse or, sexual assault or anything like that. I'm warning you now, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So click away if you are triggered by these things, okay? Anyway, she said that her daughter, unfortunately, had been raped, and she'd taken the guy to court, and the guy had gotten off. And the teacher person, or the person that was speaking, responded with, well, she must have had a soul contract with the rapist, and that she's learning a lesson. And I was like, excuse me? People, I don't even know where to start with this, but I'll formulate my response. It was like a stab in the heart at me. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, what does this say? I mean, you're in a room filled with women, and the stats are something like 1 in 4, 1 in 5 women has been raped. To me, it was victim blaming disguised as spiritual teachings. And I was just like, no, that's not okay. That's so not okay. And it's the same thing when people say stuff, and I mean, you could pick anything, abuse, some people say cancer, things like that, and that's not okay. That's not okay with me. I related this story to a friend of mine, and she said that she felt relief because she felt the same way, and that it's such a pervasive idea that it's hard to talk about because people say, oh, well, you're just not spiritually enlightened enough, or, you know, you're, no one's a victim. And I think that's just so not true. She said she had been at an event once where a woman had been, she'd been through an abusive marriage, an abusive relationship, and people said, oh, well, you should thank your husband because he's your teacher, that he taught you things. No, this person didn't do this other person any favors. You know, it's victim blaming. It's just disguised as spirituality. And I understand that it's comfortable sometimes for people to blame victims because then people feel comfortable with, well, I don't do that. Or in this case, I don't have that spiritual contract, so I'm okay. It makes people feel safe, and it makes people feel like that's not going to happen to them. And that's the underlying reason that people do that they victim blame. It makes them feel like they're okay and they're safe. And it's hard sometimes for us to realize that there's people around us who aren't nice to other people, that there's these issues going on, and we like to think that it won't happen to us, and then maybe it's not as pervasive as the media or other people would have us believe. It makes us feel safe, basically. So there are some reasons I think that this line of thinking is particularly dangerous. And I don't want to just pick on New Age because there are other spiritual communities that engage in this too, although it might look a little bit different. For example, there are certain Christian sects, certainly not all of them, but there are some that believe that whatever misfortune befalls you, whether it's an illness or your poverty or, you know, or abuse or whatever it is because you don't have a good relationship with God, that you aren't spiritual enough, you don't have enough faith in God, and that's why that happened to you. And I know another story where a person was, they had said that they went to a funeral or something, and the person had died of cancer, and they were told, well, he wouldn't have died of cancer if he believed in God more. And that's just BS. Like, you know, it happens. We don't know why these things happen, like cancer or like earthquakes or, you know, stuff from nature, but they happen, and it's not on us to judge the other person because misfortune befell them. And when it comes to other people, you know, with assaults or abuse or where it's other people doing things, that is because that other person chose to do that. People have free will, and they decided to do something shitty. It's not because the person thought negatively and then that happened to them, or because they had a contract with the other person. It's because sometimes people choose to do shitty things for whatever reason. So I think that this line of thinking is particularly dangerous, and part of it is it's victim blaming. It says that the victim had a contract with the person on the other side. They chose this lesson. They decided on it. So ultimately, on a soul level, they're responsible for it. And again, I think that makes people feel comfortable that it won't happen to them. The other second reason I think is bad is that on the flip side of that is it takes responsibility off of the perpetrator. In fact, it even can make it sound like that person did you a favor, that they taught you a lesson. And I think it's natural for people to want to make meaning out of things. I think that's human. And I think for some people that may bring them comfort, but for a lot of people that doesn't bring them comfort. It lets that person off the hook. It makes it sound like they did you a favor. They were just a teacher teaching a lesson, like that woman that was told to thank her abusive husband. People who assault and abuse other people are not doing other people favors. They are not teachers. They are, well, they've committed a crime, essentially. There's somebody who decided to do something horrible to someone else, and they are 100% responsible for their actions. And that kind of belief takes the responsibility off of them, off of the perpetrator. And I think that's really terrible and pretty dangerous thinking, I think. The other thing I think that it does is that it also, it minimizes the person's suffering. So it's like, well, they're learning a lesson. And therefore, you know, when somebody needs compassion the most, when, you know, they've been through something terrible, and whether, like I said, like it's in this case, like an assault, or they've been through abuse or illness or anything like that, it encourages people to sort of minimize what the person's going through and their suffering by saying, oh, well, it's a lesson. And often they'll say things to the person, well, you need to learn the lesson, or you need to forgive. And that's not helpful. That's not helpful to the person going through that. If they decide that they want to forgive someone, that's their decision. It's not us telling the other person, you should do this. All it does is place another level of guilt and blame on the person who's going through the suffering. Or you need to learn the lesson. Well, you know what? When somebody's going through, like, you know, cancer, like chemotherapy, or they're recovering from trauma, they don't need to sit there and learn this lesson that you think they need to learn. That's for them to decide. People like to make meaning out of things, but it's up to that person to decide what that meaning is for them, and not for you or someone else to impose that meaning upon them. The other problem with this line of thinking is that it leads to what I call it's called the just world theory, which, you know, I didn't create that name, but the idea that, well, if everyone decided in advance on things, well, then the kids in, you know, third world countries that are starving, they decided on it. The person that was born into an extremely abusive situation, they decided on that. The person that, you know, was born, you know, into a place where, you know, there's earthquakes and mudslides or whatever, and, you know, disasters happen to them and their family, they decided on it. And that leads to complacency. That leads to, like, we don't have to do anything to help others, or we don't have to fight against, you know, injustice or fight against any wrongs, because, hey, everyone just decided on it in advance, so it's okay. They're just learning their lesson. I don't have to do anything about it. And I mean, that's pretty obvious why that thinking is dangerous. I think the other thing that's dangerous about it is that it also assumes a moral superiority. I've noticed that usually the people saying these kind of things are the people who've never had to deal with these things themselves. So it's easy to say starving kids on the other side of the world decided to be there because you're not starving. You know, it's easy to say to somebody going through cancer, well, they must be learning a lesson, when you haven't gone through it, or someone that's been assaulted. And on the flip side of that too is sometimes there's people who, you know, maybe something had happened to them in the past, but they'll say to the other person with sort of a moral superiority of like, well, I've forgiven everybody that did something to me, so you should be able to too. Or I've been through that as well, and I realize that it's just a lesson. You know, and it assumes that, like, you know, this person is so much spiritually superior to someone else. And that's a problem. Like, it makes people, you know, telling people they have to forgive makes it harder for people to forgive. Nobody has to forgive. You don't owe anyone forgiveness. You don't owe it to anyone. That's a personal decision. That's something that, you know, everyone has to come to a decision about. So it really bothered me, and when the person said this, I almost left, actually. But I decided to stay because part of me was like, well, you know, maybe this is your issue, but the more and more I thought about it, the more and more it bothered me. And it just, I kept thinking, why is this bothering me? And trying to, like, break it down to what exactly is going on here. So I did let the person know, kind of how, like, in a polite way, and they did apologize. So it's not about that person, it's just the idea, because it is pretty pervasive. But I want to know what you think. What do you think of this? Do you think that everything's just a lesson? Everything's pre-decided? Do people have free will? I want to know what you think of this issue. Are you bothered by this as well? Maybe you're not. I don't know. But please keep the comments. I'd like to know what people think. I might do some other topics as well that I think are kind of problematic. But let me know what you think about this. Put in the comments below. Please be polite, though. If there's nasty comments on either side, I'm just going to delete it. But I think it's an interesting debate to have. And so please put in the links below, or not the links, the comments below. Let me know what you think. I'd like to know. I think it's kind of an interesting topic, but I'll get back to making some happy videos in a minute. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.